Hello, everybody. Welcome. Since we are fairly laterally spread out, I don't know if it feels better to you to come in towards the center and we can kind of bunch up and see each other better. It's up to you, you know. But it's nice to see you all at once instead of the cinematic sweep.
Is it here to be the first?
Yeah.
To translate though, to look
About a year ago, we were approximately in the same place, many of us, for a talk by Dr. Gershon Baskin, another peacemaker from the same region. And again, this is an ad hoc coalition of neighborhood, community groups and individuals that have supported this. And I think if we keep ad hocing like this, we'll have a very well-established ad hoc committee. I don't know if there's a better word for it, though. I think I like the ad hoc. But what brings us together is a desire to understand what it takes to foster peace among people in the Holy Land. And sitting to my right are 4 people who are very dedicated to this in their daily lives. It's not a hobby. They've made an avocation of it and a vocation of it in some cases. And by hearing their stories and understanding what has brought them to this place and to create an organization called the Abrahamic Reunion, we can understand a little bit more about what life is like in the Holy Land. And we can also, through that understanding, find out what our role might be to support them in their peace work. By being here, you're supporting them for sure. So I would like to begin with one thing. If you'll help me do it. There's a song that expresses the desire for peace, written by a very famous contemporary Israeli singer whose name has just flown out of my head, but you guys all know. And the words say, "May there always be peace. May peace come upon us and the whole world." So the words are, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Can you say that? Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Which means, let there be peace coming upon us. Ve'al kulam. Ve'al kulam. And for everyone. And then the other 2 words are really complicated. Shalom and salam. So. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam shalom. Salam salam aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam shalom. One last time. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. So without further ado, no, there is one more ado. I need to say some thank yous. There are 4 community partners for this program, and they are the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center, the Emmaus House Campus Ministry, Har Shalom, and the Western Montana Spiritual Development Council, and also a handful of anonymous, very generous individual donors. All of their donations are going to support this peace work directly. Thank you very much. I would like to now introduce you to Reverend Daniel Akle, who is sitting here, Rodef Shalom Eliyahu McLean, Imam Khalil Albaz, and his wife Sana Albaz, and they will tell you a little bit about where they come from, the work that they do, and also we listen to this with a deep understanding that at this time in Israel and Palestine there are great, great problems that break our hearts and make their work all the more important. Thank you.
Shalom Aleichem. Salamu Alaikum. Thank you for coming tonight. It's a big honor to be here at the University of Missoula, Montana. We made quite a journey from the Holy Land to Salt Lake City. Last night we were in Bozeman, and we drove out from Bozeman to be with you here tonight. My name is Eliyahu McLean, Rodef Shalom, Eliyahu McLean. I live in Jerusalem. You can tell by my accent, though I wasn't born in Israel, actually originally from California, but further west of here. And I've been living half of my life, at least, in Israel. I'm married to an Israeli woman, we have to give thanks and her support that I'm here tonight. We have 3 little girls at home that I had to leave behind so I could be with you tonight. So her support makes me being here possible. So tonight we're going to share with you some stories of hope from the Holy Land. Some of the positive news that you're likely not going to read about on the front pages of the New York Times or the local Missoula paper. A few stories of what we are doing on the ground in Jerusalem, in the Holy Land, Judea, Samaria, the West Bank. And I will share a bit more, but I wanted to introduce some of my colleagues. To my left is Reverend Daniel Akle. He is from Bethlehem. He's an evangelical pastor, actually, from Bethlehem. And this is Imam Khalil Elbaz. And this is Sana Elbaz, his wife, and they will each speak a little bit. But I got started in 1999. I was a gathering at the southern Israeli city of Eilat with Imam Elbaz. He's the Imam of a Bedouin Muslim Arab city in the Negev. And Khalil and I were at this meetings of, this one was particularly Muslims and Jews. After 3 days of imams and rabbis gathering, the chief rabbi of Eilat stood up and said, you know, in the time of my grandfather, when Jews and Muslims had a problem, a dispute between them, they used to solve their dispute in the Beit Din, the Jewish court of law. And most Muslims of Halab, Aleppo, actually, rather than going to the Islamic court of law, really preferred to go to the Jewish court of law, the Beit Din, and therefore became experts in halakha, in Jewish law. We have an expression in Israel. When you want to say something, that's not a big deal, we say in Hebrew, zelo big deal. Zelo big deal. So after the Imam of the rabbi of Chief Rabbi of Eilat stood up, the late Sheikh Abdulaziz al-Bukhari, He was one of the founders of our Abrahamic Reunion group. Unfortunately, he's now a member of our heavenly team. He's now in Olam Haba. Allah yirhamo zichrono lebracha. But the sheikh stands up and says, you guys think that's a big deal about your grandfather? Ze lo big deal. He said, when my grandfather studied to be an imam at the Islamic University of Cairo called Al-Azhar University, the largest Islamic university, not only did he have to study part of the New Testament in order to be ordained as a sheikh, he also had to study a whole masechet, a whole chapter of Talmud. In order to be ordained as a sheikh, you hear that? He had to pass a test and study Talmud and New Testament. Not to be outdone, the chief rabbi of Ramat Gan, the Sephardic chief rabbi, said, you guys think that's a big deal? Zelo big deal. He said, when my grandfather was the chief rabbi of Libya, not only did he know the entire Quran by heart, he knew all of the tafsir, the midrashim, the commentaries by heart, so much so that they used to call him Sheikh al-Yahud, the Jewish sheikh. Yeah, all right. They used to come, he was the real Jewish sheikh. And one after another, they all had the same story. And it was very beautiful to connect religious leaders. And this is when I met Khalil, actually, at this gathering in Eilat. And, but after 3 days, and right now, the news we're having the whole, it's just the latest round. We have like 5 seasons over there. You know, we have spring, summer, fall, winter, and the latest flare-up is another season. You know, so it's kind of the rhythm of life. We're not too, you know, we live together, and even when there's challenges over there. So Imam Khalil and I started working together in '99, and shortly afterwards, I started to travel around the country, and I started to seek out different people of faith in their own faith community, whether it was an Orthodox rabbi, like Rabbi Menachem Froman. He was one of the founders of Gush Emunim and Tekoa, the religious Zionist settler movement. He was the first rabbi to initiate dialogue, even with the Islamic radicals, and he did it for the sake of finding a way to live in the Holy Land, in the land of Israel, and building bridges on the base of religious understanding and observance. Khalil and I searched out some other Muslim leaders, Christians. Eventually, I developed a friendship with Reverend Daniel Akle, and for the last, starting in 2004, when a big group of us went to Barcelona, Spain to attend a gathering, an event called the Parliament of the World's Religions, we started to do regular work together in the Holy Land and calling ourselves the Abrahamic Reunion. So we're actually just one small group. We're meeting up tomorrow. We're driving down to Salt Lake City for a 5-day world interfaith event called the Parliament of the World's Religions. We have about 12 or 13 peacemakers, including an Orthodox rabbi from Otniel in the West Bank near Hebron. We have Hajj Ibrahim Abu al-Hawa, a Muslim peacemaker. He's actually on the flyer. He didn't come tonight because we had to send him to Boston. We had a talk last night at MIT with some of our group, MIT. And Druze Sheikh has also on his way, the wife of the late Rabbi Menachem Froman, Hadassah. So we have a whole group of Jewish, Christian, Muslim, and Druze religious leaders, and we're meeting tomorrow, and we're going to be together for the next 5 days in Salt Lake City, not only giving talks and presentations, but also the situation in Jerusalem, in the Holy Land, is burning on the ground right now. And every time there's been a war in our region, we always get together in the midst of the war and the end of the war and say, okay, it's back to the drawing board. We've done some great projects and great work, and we're going to share with you a little bit later about those projects. But to rededicate our thought and our prayers and our resources of how is it that we can best build bridges of peace, harmony, and understanding among B'nai Avraham Avinu, the children of Abraham. So I will share with you a little bit later more about what is it that we actually do on the ground, but I want to give the floor to my Christian and Muslim partners. Maybe we'll start tonight with Daniel, Reverend Daniel Akle. If you want.
Yeah. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just say what I...
No more, take your time.
Okay, so... Okay. So good evening. Are you still awake? Yeah. Okay, that's good. Anyway, my name is Daniel, and I'm from Bethlehem. I live about 7 minutes from where Jesus was born in Bethlehem. And just to give you a little bit background about myself, that I grew up in a Christian family. And I went to, after school, I went to a college in Joplin, Missouri, finished there in music and theology. I am a worship leader. We do have a home church in Bethlehem and a guest house called House of Peace. I've been working for the Bethlehem Bible College as the webmaster. It's the only Christian college in all Palestine and Israel. We have a branch in Nazareth. Maybe I'm talking too much information. I need to slow down. No, everything. Okay, Christians, when we think about Bethlehem, if we go back 2,000 years ago, at the time of Christ, it was a little town of about between 500 to 700 people. Today, Bethlehem is about 120,000 people living in it. It's the Bethlehem district, include 3 different cities, and we have 35% Christians in the city of Bethlehem. We are surrounded by a wall that we cannot go to Jerusalem, but we're going to talk about that maybe a little bit later. I have been a peace activist really for the past 7 or 8 years. As a Christian, I believe very strongly of the teachings of Jesus Christ, who said, "Blessed those who are the peacemakers, for they will inherit the land." He did not say, "Blessed those who are the troublemakers." And whenever we cannot build peace when there is already peace there. The more conflict happens, or wherever there is conflict, that is when we need to go and build peace. It is very hard sometimes to go against the norm, but I believe very strongly that the more we do this, and we're gonna and Eliyahu and myself will gonna share about that more, the more we are creating a platform, creating a new thinking, new atmosphere in the Holy Land that is really needed. If we think about people over there, there are extremes on both sides that want to get rid of the other, let me say. But we as a group, Christians, Muslims, Jewish, Baha'is, Druze, coming all together, looking at the other as we are one family, because if you can trace our heritage, you trace it to Noah, or to Adam, or to Abraham, you know. So we all come from one source, and I believe that God created us all equal. There is no one that is better than the other. Even the Apostle Paul in his letters, he writes, look guys, there is no difference between a Jew and a Gentile. That's example. We are all one. So we need to, and then when Christ give us the Samaritan parable, he talks about the one who did the mercy to the one that got beaten is the one that was opposite than him in culture, background, maybe color, ethnic group, everything. That is the person that we should love and care for. So it's been really great privilege for me to be a part of the Abrahamic reunion and to help bring Palestinians, Christians and Muslims, to different events that takes place mostly in Israel, visiting a church, a mosque, and a synagogue, both, and do a prayer of peace. Meet lots of religious leaders, lots of people, and try to give the idea that we can live together. If we can talk, if we're here together in one mind, one thinking, there is no need to fight. There is enough fighting in the world. There is enough hatred in the world that we cannot add to that. We need to create something different. I believe that this is the time, and the time is now, that the generation that is coming up will have a different mental set towards peace and justice. So I have lots of things to share with you, but I'm going to give the platform to our dear friend, Sheikh Khalil.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening. ترجم إن شاء الله الشيخ الياو. الشيخ الياو translate me. الشيخ إمام خليل الباز. معي الياو.
This is the Imam by the name of Khalil al-Baz.
אני רוצה להציג את עצמי שאף אחד לא יתרגז. אז אני אגיד כך, אני בן העדה הבדואית.
I'm from the Bedouin sector.
הלאום ערבי.
I'm also from the Arab nation,
העם פלסטיני.
from the Palestinian people,
והאזרחות ישראלית.
and Israeli citizen.
עם כל התבשיל הזה אנחנו מנסים לחיות.
And in all of this spices all together, we like to make a nice recipe and live.
אני מדבר ככה בגלל שאני עייף. יומיים, 3 ימים אנחנו בטיסה וניסעות, אבל כשאני רואה את הפנים היפות האלה, הכל עובר מהר מאוד.
He said, even though we're a little bit exhausted from our journeys from the Holy Land, we've been almost non-stop traveling, flights and driving since, hit the ground running, so to speak. But when we see your faces and see each one of you coming tonight, it returns us back to life.
שני עמיתיי דיברו על אברהם קרוניון. אני לא ארחיב את הדיבור, אני אכנס ישר לנושאים שאנחנו עובדים עליהם.
So my two brothers here spoke about the Abrahamic reunion, and I don't want to expand too much. I want to address the subject that we came to hear about.
דרך אגב, שכחתי להגיד לכם שזאת אשתי, אם לא הייתי בא איתה, לא הייתי חוזר לארץ פשוט מאוד.
I forgot to mention to you that I'm sitting next to my wife, and I wouldn't have come here without her.
אם לא הייתי בא, לא הייתי חוזר לארץ.
Yes. If she wasn't here, I wouldn't I would be rushing back to Israel.
יש לנו הרבה בעיות, רבותיי. אתם באמת, כשאני נכנסתי פעם ראשונה לארצות הברית, ראיתי את השקט, את הרוגע, ואמרתי, אנשים פה חיים, 300 מיליון בני אדם, למעלה מ-300 חיים, ואנחנו שם איזה 7-8 מיליון, כל העולם שומע את הצרות שלנו.
Right. So he's saying here in the United States, you're 300 million people, and certainly have some level of problems, but he come, first to Salt Lake City and to Montana. He just feels the quiet, the tranquility. He said, we're over there, we're like about 7-8 million people, and we've got our share of problems.
פשוט מאוד אני מקנא בכם, אני רוצה לחיות כמוכם. אני, אשתי, חברים שלי, עמיתיי, אנשים שנשארו שם, אנחנו רוצים שקט כמוכם, לחיות כמוכם פשוט מאוד. אנחנו בני אדם.
He said, I'm just a person, but I'm jealous of you. I would like to experience this type of tranquility in my community and our communities, whether with my Jewish friend or in my own Muslim Arab community, just like you, I'm a person. Everybody wants this.
אמרו לי שיוטה זה אחד המקומות מונטנה זה המדינה הכי כמעט הגדולה בארצות הברית. רביעית, ויש לכם רק 1 מיליון תושבים.
He said, they told me that Montana is the 4th largest state in the United States, is that right? And that in all of that big state, you're just 1 million people.
אתם רוצים לקבל עוד 10 מיליון ונפתור את הבעיה של המזרח התיכון.
Do you guys want to take another 10 million and we'll solve the Middle East problem here and now?
ברצינות עכשיו, אנחנו
Seriously.
באנו לכאן, לכנס בסולט סיטי, ואנחנו רצינו גם לראות אתכם, לדבר אתכם, ולהגיד לכם שיש שם, חוץ מהישראלים, יש עוד עם אחד פלסטיני, וגם בתוך מדינת ישראל חיה עדה בדואית, בת 300,000 בני אדם, שאני ואשתי נמנים עליה, או אתם לא יודעים בכלל על קיומנו. הבדואים של ישראל זה האינדיאנים של ארצות הברית.
Okay, so he's saying we traveled to Salt Lake City and we came here to Montana to share with you about our situation within the state of Israel, not just as part of the Palestinian-Israeli problem. There's also our community, which are the Bedouins in the state of Israel, the Bedouin community. And this is me and my wife, we are from that community.
אנחנו בעמותה הזאת מנסים לטפל הן בבעיות של כלל העם הישראלי והפלסטיני, וגם במקרו, זה בכללי, ובמקרו אנחנו מנסים לטפל בבעיות של אזרחי ישראל הבדואים, שהם, כמו שאמרתי לכם, 300,000 בני אדם חיים בתוך מדינת ישראל.
So in our non-profit, Abrahamic Reunion, we're dealing with a larger Israeli-Palestinian issue and interfaith relations in the Holy Land on a larger scale, and also on a smaller scale to deal with the how to integrate the 300,000 strong Bedouin Arab Muslim community in the state of Israel.
אם תגידו טוב, אתם קיימים מ-2004, מה עשיתם? למען האמת לא עשינו הרבה. ואם תשאלו למה לא עשינו הרבה, כי פשוט מאוד אתם משלם ממסים אמריקאי, תורמים לישראל וגם למזרח התיכון שם נשק, רק לישראל, אני יודע, זה $10 מיליארד בשנה. תנו לנו אחוז מזה, ואנחנו נפתור הרבה בעיות. אחוז מאחוז אחד. הכנפיים של המטוס רק, ותראי כמה אנחנו רוצים להוציא עיתון לעמותה שלנו, רוצים לעשות כנסים לעמותה שלנו, אבל אין לנו, אנחנו לא יכולים, כן, במדינת ישראל לא נותנים תקציב לעמותות, ואז לא נותר אלא לבוא לאבא, לדוד הגדול, הדוד סם, שנותן $10 מיליארד לצבא, אז אנחנו רוצים אחוז של אחוז לא לצבא, לאזרחות.
So the Imam is saying that a lot of military aid goes to Israel, but also to general arms in the Middle East. All we're asking for is 0.1% of that budget. Even this, the price of a set of wheels on one airplane to help fund our peace work. We would like to put out a newspaper. We'd like to publicize more what we're doing. And I'll talk a little bit later about how all of the media really only likes to report the bad news and not the good news. Literally, when it bleeds, it leads. It's true. But he was saying that we have a lot of work still ahead of us, and if we could just somehow convince you, the American taxpayer, to pressure your government to support these type of initiatives in the Holy Land, it could have a positive impact.
או יש לי שתי אפשרויות, שתי אופציות. או שתתמכו בנו, או שתיקחו אותנו. תיקחו אותנו אצלכם.
Okay, so you have two options. You can either support us from afar, or you can take us all in and resettle us here. And I think we'll be too much of a burden, so just write a big check.
אנחנו עברנו עכשיו, בשבועיים, 3 שבועות האחרונים, אנחנו עוברים מסע קשה בירושלים ובארץ הקודש. בעיות בין בני דודים, שני הבני דודים רבים אחד עם השני, על חלקת אדמה אחת, שבסופה של דבר כולם יקברו בתוכה, והיא תמשיך להישאר ויבואו דורות אחרים וימשיכו לריב. אנחנו מנסים באמצעים הדלים שיש לנו לעשות תקווה קטנה. לפתוח גן ילדים אחד, להפגיש בין יהודים לפלסטינים, פעם או פעמיים שעשינו הבאנו מנבלוס, משכם, ולקחנו אותם לאשקלון שהם לא ראו ים בחיים שלהם. אלה מעשים קטנים, אבל בשביל אנשים אחרים זה תקווה גדולה מאוד מאוד. ואנחנו דלי אמצעים, אנחנו לא נוכל לעשות את זה.
So we have, for example, in one of the projects that we do is we do regular meetings between Arabs and Jews. And a few months ago, we brought a busload of Palestinians from Nablus who had never seen the beach before in their life, and we brought them to Ashkelon. It was the first time they could get to a beach. And we brought Israelis into Mount Gerizim, Mount Bracha. This is where the Samaritans live, right above the ancient biblical city of Shechem, or Nablus. We brought Jews from Itamar, a nearby settlement. We brought the governor of Nablus, Palestinians, quote-unquote settlers, Jews living in the Shomron. And we had a beautiful interfaith Hanukkah celebration in the city of Mount Bracha. We had in the Negev with Khalil, we brought a whole busload of Arabs and Jews. And we were in the city of Rahat, in the large mosque. We went to the beach in Ashkelon. We did a prayer for peace on the border of Gaza, directly right on the border, a few hundred yards away from where the fighting in Gaza had just been last summer, and now where the crowds of Gazans are now trying to cross the border. All of these places, we bring our groups and we pray for harmony, we pray for peace. We even bring the Israeli soldiers on the border and invite them to join us. It's not against anybody. It's about what are we for? Coexistence, not just coexistence, really one existence. But Khalil brought up an important point. He's saying, אמרת בסוף שכולנו לא הולכים לשום מקום או ש...
נכון, נשארים במקום הזה, לא באים למונטנה, חייבים להישאר שם, צחוק. אבל אנחנו רוצים פשוט עזרה. למשל, ניקח את החברה הבדואית. יש לנו 60-70 אלף היום בחברה הבדואית שגרים בצריפים, וזה לא מתאים למאה ה-21, הם נמצאים במאה ה-15 פשוט מאוד. ולשים טנק של מים, כי אלה מים זורמים, לקנות להם טנק של מים.
We have a big challenge among the Bedouins of Israel, and I should add that the Bedouins are the one Muslim sector within the state of Israel that serve in the Israeli army. The imam's son is Samar, has been כמה שנים?
שנתיים שירות לאומי.
Yeah, he's אבל הבן היה גם.
הבן של אחי 25 שנה בצבא.
Right, so his nephew is 25 years in the Israeli army. His daughter serves in the national service in Israel. So generally, the Bedouins are integrated and actually help defend the state of Israel when there's even problems with terrorists crossing the borders, the trackers. He also mentioned he sees the Bedouins like the Native Americans. You know, they're like very much like the indigenous Arabs of the southern part of the country. And so he has family members who serve, and service the state of Israel, and yet there are 70, a large 80,000 Bedouins who live in tin huts, no electricity, no water. They live in about 30, 40 unrecognized towns and villages. They're not on the map. They're unrecognized. They have received no state services, no healthcare centers, no paved roads, no running water.
והם נסתפק גם, תאמינו לי, בתפילות שלכם, שתעזרו לנו, גם זה יעזור במשהו. תודה רבה לכם.
He said, so we also appreciate your support, not just financial, and you can write a check, just to the Abrahamic Reunion, very simple, or put more money in the hat at the entrance of the door, but you can also send us your prayers. Sana.
ערב טוב לכולם, סלאם עליכם. אליהו, תרגם אותי.
כן, כן. אבל לאט,
אוקיי, בסדר.
לחלק את המשפטים, כן.
اسمي سناء אלבז. סליחה, אליהו. שמי סנא אלבז, אשתו של שייח' חליל, ואני גם חברה בתוך העמותה שלנו, בני אברהם.
My name is Sana Elbaz, and I'm also an active member in the Abrahamic Reunion.
אני אתחיל קודם מהנקודה של חליל איפה שסיים. אני לא כל כך מסכימה אותו שבינתיים נביא את שני העמים שלנו אליכם, כי הם יביישו אותי. כל עוד שלא הסכימו להיות ביחד מבפנים ולאהוב אחד את השני באמת, אז הם יעשו לי בושות, אז אני בינתיים לא מסכימה שיבואו.
So first of all, she doesn't agree with her husband. She said it would be kind of a bit embarrassing right now for all of the Israelis and Palestinians to show up in Montana, the entire country, because until we're getting along, we don't want to. We don't want to air our dirty laundry too closely. Yeah. You don't have to smell our dirty socks.
אני באמת מקנאה, קנאה חיובית כמובן, אבל אני באמת מקנאה כשאני מסתכלת על אנשים כאן ואנשים באמריקה, וזו פעם ראשונה שלי שאני באה לאמריקה, שהם ככה ביחד דבר לגיטימי, טבעי, יהודי, נוצרי, אפילו לא יודעת מה, נראה טבעי. אפילו מסתכלים על המטפחת שלי בצורה מאוד טבעית, ואני אצל היהודים והערבים ביחד מסתכלים עליי מוזר.
So in a certain way, I'm jealous. This is, by the way, my first time in America, and I come here, and it just seems so natural, just no big deal, right? Zero big deal, right? Just Jews, Christians, Muslims, and I know I'm leaving out other faiths, Buddhists, Hindus, Baha'is, pagans, atheists, whoever, everyone getting along in relative tranquility and harmony. And I can even come as a religious Muslim woman and wear my hijab, and no one really, glances a second look. And I go as a Bedouin Muslim woman. If I go alone in my own country, then even from Arabs and Jews, sometimes I might get looked at a little bit with a sideward glance.
בשנת 2006 הצטרפתי לבעלי חליל לעמותה שלו, רק מתוך סקרנות לדעת על מה מדברת העמותה הזאת. ופתאום אני מגלה שיש לי כתובת לכל הדילמות שהיו לי, מבחינת המחיה שלי במדינת ישראל כאזרחית. ועם כל הסכסוך והבעיות, פתאום ראיתי בעמותת בני אברהם, ראיתי כתובת לכל הדילמות שיש לי בראש.
כל הדילמות?
דילמות, כן.
קונפלקטים.
קונפליקטים.
לא, הכוונה שהיא, היו לה הרבה...
היו לי, כן.
אתה מצאת פתרון שלה.
כן. So she's noticed many conflicts and challenges and dilemmas that she had to engage with and deal with as a Bedouin, Arab, Muslim woman. And all of a sudden she came and started to take part in the Abrahamic Reunion, and she saw a vehicle with which she could start to tackle some of these challenges. And this is what motivated her, independently of her husband's decision, motivated her to be active. And by the way, we have other Muslim, Jewish, Druze, and Christian women also active in the Abrahamic Reunion. So we are male religious leaders and women peace leaders in our circle. You should know that.
אני אמשיך?
כן.
ואז החלטתי להצטרף לעמותה מתוך כמה מטרות. אחת המטרות, והיא הראשונה שבראש העניין, אני בתור אישה בדואית רציתי להראות גם למדינת ישראל וגם לכל התושבים במדינת ישראל, החל מהבית וגם כלפי העולם, שיכירו את האישה הבדואית, שכל הזמן, וגם את האישה המוסלמית, שהרבה אנשים בעולם חושבים שאישה מוסלמית היא רק נגררת אחרי הגבר. אבל אני רציתי להראות לכולם שזה הפוך מזה, שהיא יכולה לנסוע, לדבר, לחיות, לתפקד ולהחליט החלטות אפילו.
I also wanted to break some stereotypes. The entire world thinks about the Muslim Arab woman, the Muslim Arab Bedouin woman, that she's completely 100% dependent on the husband and 100% oppressed and dominated, and she wants to come. She came to say that the opposite is true, that the Bedouin Muslim woman has a lot of independence, and she has a lot of independence, and that she can come and travel and express her viewpoints in an open, free way.
ומטרה שנייה לא פחות גדולה, ראיתי בעמותה הזאת הזדמנות לנסות לפתור את הבעיות שיש לנו, אנחנו אנשי השלום, איפה שכשלו, אני ראיתי שכשלו אנשי הפוליטיקה שלי במדינת ישראל, לא נתנו לי ביטחון וכשלו. יש לי ראש ממשלה שאני קיבלתי שוק לפני כמה חודשים, שהוא מופיע בטלוויזיה ואומר לעם היהודי, קומו לקלפי, הערבים רצים לקלפי. ואתה מציג את עצמך שאתה ראש ממשלה של כל האזרחים, ואתה עושה את המיון הזה מול כל העולם בלי שום טיפה של בושה. אז התביישתי ובכיתי גם.
So she also, מה אמרת לפני זה אמרת משהו?
המטרה השנייה שלא פחות קטנה מהגדולה, שהיא גדולה גם כמו קטנה, שהצטרפתי לעמותה.
Yeah. So another reason that I came is also I wanted to deal with the fears that there are within the state of Israel. For example, a certain politician, when it came to elections, was able to get to rally some voters out of fear that Arabs were going to the polls to vote. So she was said, well, if this politician is representing me, well, how am I supposed to feel? If there's fears about Arab voters going to the polls. Okay?
כן. אז בתוך העמותה שלנו, שראיתי שם אנשים שבאמת דואגים ומשלמים גם מחיר לעשות שלום, החלטתי ללכת עד הסוף. והשלום הוא לא דבר קל, הוא קשה כמו מלחמה. שלום גם יש לו מחיר. אחד המחירים אני שילמתי בעצמי אישית. כשאני עליתי על הר הרצל בירושלים, הדלקתי מסועה של יהודים בגלל הצלחה שלי בגן ילדים בדואים. שהיהודים פתחו להם את המקום הזה, יהודים כמוני שאוהבים שלום ושוחרי שלום, עשו את המעון הזה, ואני עבדתי פה כמנהלת, ובגלל שעשיתי עבודה טובה לילדים, זכיתי בפרס המדיני של מדינת ישראל, והדלקתי מסועה. והתנכלו אליי ושרפו לי את הבית, ואמרו לי בוגדת, את אוהבת יהודים. אלה שלא אוהבים את השלום אמרו לי בוגדת, אלה ערבים. ויהודים שלא אוהבים את השלום אמרו, מה פתאום שהערבייה תעמוד איפה שצריך יהודי שיעמוד ותדליק מסועה. אבל אני עשיתי את זה, ולמרות המחיר ששילמתי...
את רוצה שהוא יתרגם לך?
כן, אני אעזור לו. האמנתי יותר בדרך שלי שאני הולכת בה.
שוואיה.
אוקיי, ליאו, אתמול היית...
כן.
אתמול תרגמת ים, היום...
I speak a bit of Arabic also, so I could handle shwaya, a little
Okay,
bit,
בסדר,
little at a time. אבל אני מכיר את הסיפור, אז...
כן.
So Sana was sharing that she also, not only her, but many of the peacemakers, the Israeli Jews, Palestinians, Bedouins, if you work with the other, sometimes you have to pay a price, and sometimes you can even be called as a traitor, as a boget to your nation, as a traitor to your people. It's not easy. It seems so obvious here in the United States, but it's really not easy on the ground. And she shares a particular story how she ran for many years, a very successful daycare center and model for early childhood education in the Bedouin sector, where there had never been such a thing. She started this whole model project that spread all over Israel in her town of Tel Sheva. For about 15 years she was running this, and she won a prize, a big prize of recognition for her work to empower. This was a way, of course, to also empower Arab, Muslim, Bedouin women who weren't always just chained to childcare, but also this was a space for the young children to have daycare and empowerment. So her work was recognized by the State of Israel, and she was chosen as one of two, שתיים בשנה, שלוש בשנה הם בוחרים למשואה, בשביל לעשות את הטקס.
זה פעם בשנה, כל שנה.
אבל כמה אנשים כל פעם? כמה אנשים כל פעם? 12?
לא, 13.
12.
אז זה 12.
Yeah, there's about 10 or 12 people that they choose to light the national flame on Independence Day, Yom HaAtzmaut, at Mount Herzl in Jerusalem. And this is a ceremony that's on Israeli TV, and it's a big deal, and it's on, politicians are there and diplomats from all over the world. It's like the national flame is lit once a year. It's on all the TV channels every year. And this is a big ceremony for the State of Israel, and particularly the fulfillment of the Zionist dream of the foundation of the State of Israel. And this was the first time that an Arab Muslim Bedouin woman was chosen to light the national flame. It was a big deal.
Thank you.
So she went there and she lit the flame, and this was, of course, on TV and all of the media. But of course, there was also criticism. So on one side, there were Jewish Israelis who said, how could this be that an Arab and a Bedouin and a Muslim Arab Bedouin woman would be in such a position? This is for tried and true proper Israelis to light such a thing. So she got criticized on that side. On the other side, members of her own community called her a traitor. And I could add, and they're not telling this story, they're even to the point where their home was firebombed. Yeah, someone threw like a firebomb through the window of their house, and it was a very scary moment for them, because she was standing up and saying, I do this for the sake of peace and to bring awareness also to the role of Bedouin women in our society.
אני מוכנה לעבור, אם יזדמן עוד סבל, אפילו יותר ממה שהיה לי, לעומת השלום והשקט והביטחון לילדים שלי ולדורות הבאים, אני מוכנה לעמוד בסבל הזה. קודם כל, אישה בדואית חזקה, היא כמו גמל חזקה.
So she said, I'm willing to even pay a much heavier price than the one I paid, if it can bring peace, harmony, and a good life for my children, and for the children of our country, and for future generations. I'm willing to pay any price for the sake of peace. People don't know how strong Bedouin women are. We're like camels.
אני מסתכלת על הפנים המקשיבות שלכם, הפנים המתעניינות והאוזניים הקושבות, ואני שוכחת, חולף לי כל העייפות של הטיסה וחוסר השינה של 3 ימים האלה. ואני רק רוצה לקצר ולהגיד לכם כל כך המון תודות, ואנחנו מחזק אצלי יותר את האמונה שאם באמת אנשי הפוליטיקה לא עשו כלום, אתם תעזרו לנו ותעזרו לעמותה שלנו באמצעים הדלים שלנו להתקדם עבור השלום שלנו, ואנחנו לא נשכח את העזרה שלכם. תודה רבה לכם.
She wanted to say, she sees your faces and also that you're listening and paying attention. It's not so obvious also in our part of the world to listen to each other. We have also, we do workshops on how to listen in our work. And it gives her empowerment in spite of the tiredness from the journey. And 3 days, she says, I feel uplifted just being here, and I feel your energy, and we appreciate your support. We can feel it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I wanted to share just a little bit. Since 2004, the Abrahamic Reunion has been gathering once a year to do an annual interfaith Ramadan dinner. And Ramadan also often falls on the Jewish holidays. When we first started doing this work, it was Ramadan, Christmas, and Hanukkah in the early 2000s. And so we did an interfaith Hanukkah, Christmas, Ramadan celebration where you had the Druze and the Christians and the Muslims lighting the Hanukkah candles, and then all of us preparing for the Christians and preparing the Ramadan meal for the Muslims. And we've been doing annually since 2004 these gatherings and these dinners. Now, a little over a year ago, we were planning our annual interfaith Ramadan dinner in the city of Nazareth in the Galilee. It was like we do every year, but really we were just doing these gatherings once a year. And something very difficult happened. Near Jerusalem, there were three Israeli, in a place called Gush Etzion, 3 Israeli teenagers who were hitchhiking to go home. Yeah, they were hitchhiking, they were picked up, they were never seen again. They found their bodies 17 days later, kidnapped and murdered. There was so much tension and hurt and pain among all Israelis, and even when there was a protest rally in the West Bank, in the heart of the West Bank, some of our Muslim leaders were there, Ibrahim Abu al-Hawa and others, to say, this is wrong, this is humanity here. They were willing to stand up, even as Muslims, and receive criticism and say, we have to respect the humanity of everybody, including especially these 3 teenagers. Shortly after that, in a revenge attack, a Palestinian teenager from East Jerusalem was killed in a horrific attack, revenge attack. Rioting spread across the country, and this was the atmosphere. Now, that weekend, right after this, I had planned. I now live in Jerusalem, but I was living up in the Jewish mystical city of Kabbalah, called Tzfat in the Galilee. And I'd lived there for 2 years. And I'm also, by the way, I don't really make a living as a peacemaker. I make a living as a tour guide. So if any of you wants a great tour guide, when you come, look me up. So had been living in Tzfat, and I went with my wife and children. We wanted to visit our old town of Tzfat. We spent Shabbat there, and we're coming back from Tzfat to Jerusalem. It's after Shabbat is over, so we didn't follow the news, all of the Sabbath, Saturday. We didn't follow the news. It's Motzei Shabbat. We're driving in a place called Wadi Ara. This is within sovereign Israel. It's a place of number of Arab towns. We didn't follow the news, but there had been clashes and rioting that day. It was 2 a.m. We're stopped at a traffic light in this part of the country between north and south, from the north to the center of the country. And all of a sudden, surrounding our bus are about 14 young men with kafiyas, with huge rocks like this, raining rocks down on our window. I'm there with my wife and 2 young daughters, and it's a bus of all ultra-Orthodox Jews. And people started panicking. The glass is breaking. And before you know it, I only found out later there was a lit Molotov cocktail thrown into the bus. A quick-thinking Hasid had managed to extinguish the Molotov cocktail. I look out the window and there's 5 other guys. I could see them with their lighters trying to light their Molotov cocktails, ready to rain it down on the bus. Now, I'm looking at the driver. There's a red light. And he's in shock, and he sees the red light, and he's so ingrained not to break the law. And I just screamed at him, "It's time to go. Sa, lech." And it was a scary moment, a very, very scary moment, but was very beautiful also. All the Hasidic Jews on the bus, we got out, and we sang a song of thanksgiving, thanks and praise, that no one was hurt, and there was not one scream of revenge or hate or anything, but just giving tov lahodot l'Hashem. I got to Jerusalem, I instantly got online to my Facebook page, I posted what happened to me. And a lot of my friends in Jerusalem said, "You see, you can't trust the Arabs, they just want to kill us, they just want to drive us to the sea. It's the nature, Esav sonet Yaakov, and we can't have peace." The only true and legitimate response, nekama, revenge, nekama. And I took that to my heart, but I was planning this annual interfaith Ramadan dinner, and so the next day I went to go plan this event anyway. And the next day I heard from one of my Muslim partners in Nazareth that 2 Israeli Jews came up to his teenage sons and tried to kidnap them and pull them into a van. So it's so charged. Here you have, on both sides, reasons now to say, no, we can't work with the other anymore. We can't trust each other. They tried to kidnap my son. They tried to firebomb the bus that I was on. So we planned this event, and 2 weeks later, we invited a few Arabs from East Jerusalem, Palestinians from East Jerusalem, and before we knew it, we had a whole bus of 60 people, Jews and Arabs, that wanted to come to this event, including all these neighborhoods that you hear about now, Beit Hanina, Jabal Mukaber, where all of these perpetrators in these recent attacks, but even from all of these neighborhoods, we have people, they're hungry to be with Jews. They were hungry to be together, to be human together. So we took a bus journey to Nazareth. We did a peace walk through the city of Nazareth. People were amazed to see Jews and Arabs walking arm in arm. And on the rooftop of the gathering, on this apartment in the middle of Nazareth, now we're in the thick of the Gaza war, right in the heart of it. Civilians in Gaza killed that day. Israel responding to Hamas rocket fire, civilians getting killed, soldiers getting killed. A charged, heavy atmosphere. In the middle of that, 200 Jews, Christians, Muslims, Druze held a big interfaith Ramadan dinner, a whole table. By the way, the Christians and the Muslims always prepare the kosher food. They work with the rabbi of Natzrat Illit to bring in the most glatt kosher, the strictest badatz, glatt kosher possible food. It's so kosher that it's wrapped with 3 layers of plastic and aluminum foil. And I hate to say it, it's usually not very tasty. Say it doesn't have to be that kosher. Just 1 layer of aluminum is enough. But they want to prove, we're going to honor you. Usually the people from outside, from Europe, and I say, oh, what is it? You're sitting separately, you have kosher food. I can count on the Muslims and Christians. The priests and the imams, they say, no, we want to honor them. Let them keep kosher. People from outside, what is it? You're eating separately. How dare you? You eat kosher. And but we want to create a safe space where everyone could eat. And in other words, we had this beautiful dinner. And at the end of the evening, we did a prayer for Peace Circle. And I shared with the whole crowd there, 200 people there, the story of this bus attack 2 weeks before and how my friends had called for revenge. And I said, you see this, how we're gathered together? Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Here we are, brothers and sisters, sitting together. This gathering is my revenge. This is the revenge. This is the nikama. To do the battle with the Yetzer Hara, with the Satan, with the Shaitan, to battle the fear and the hatred that takes over. The brothers, the children of Abraham, had to come together. And I said, we need to do a jihad for peace. Milchemet Kodesh. The Christian, Anglican, Arab pastor there said, no, more than a jihad for peace, a jihad for love. Make it even deeper. And from that event, this was a year ago in Nazareth, we sent out a report around the world, and it got so much support, we were able to get a year commitment for once a month to have an interreligious peace journey throughout the Holy Land. And we have done that every single month since then. 2 busloads of Israelis, Palestinians, Jews, Christians, and Muslims going to different parts of the country. And Daniel has been with me on 3 or 4 of these trips, and when he can't come, he sends me a whole list of Palestinians from Hebron, many of them Muslims, by the way. He's an evangelical pastor, but he represents as many, even from refugee camps, right? From Al-Rub refugee camp. We've done beautiful journeys up to Akko, to Faradis, to Zichron Yaakov. We did an interfaith Tu B'Shvat Seder at a yeshiva called Ma'ale Gilboa, where the rabbis hosted us for Tu B'Shvat, an interfaith boat ride on the Sea of Galilee, singing and dancing well into the night, with Hasidic and Arabic music on the boat ride, singing Hava Nagila and Kalthum, and really beautiful for Palestinians from all over the West Bank, also just to be on a boat on the Sea of Galilee under the full moon, looking on Tzfat and Golan Heights in the distance. It's really, little islands of hope and time. Recently, there was a church called the Multiplication of Fishes and Loaves. This is a place called Tabcha, where the miracle of the multiplication in the Christian tradition happened. And this church was burned down in an arson attack by Jewish extremists. So we went and brought a interfaith delegation to show solidarity with the German Benedictine monks, and we brought a shofar, and a young rabbi came with his shofar right in the site of where the arson attack had happened, and blew his shofar with rabbis from Tzfat and Jews, Christians, and Muslims, Druze, to support them. Just a few weeks ago was the International Day of Peace, September 21st, also happened to be the day before Yom Kippur and Eid al-Adha, the Islamic Feast of the Sacrifice. So we brought the head of the Pardes Institute, Rabbi Danny Landis, a rabbi, and Imam Khalil al-Baz, and an imam from Beit Hanina in East Jerusalem, and we did a learning about the meaning of fasting and repentance for Yom Kippur, tshuva, repentance, and the story of the near sacrifice of the chosen beloved son. And we learned that when God asked, in the midrashim of both traditions, when God asked Abraham, send your most beloved son, he said, Isaac is the beloved son of Sarah, but Ishmael is the beloved son, also a beloved son of Ishmael. They're both my beloved sons. They're both my only sons of their mother, right? Each one is the only son of their mother. And we had a very interesting text study about that whole theme. And Khalil and Sana joined Ilana, and the women led us on a peace walk to Armona Netziv. This is right where this attack happened a few days ago on the bus. But nearby there, we went to a beautiful place called the Tayelet, overlooking the old city, and we did a prayer for peace all together, chanting Shalom and Salam. Of course, separate circles, the women holding hands in one circle, the men holding hands in another circle, to keep and honor the Shomer Nagia aspect of our community. And in other words, we were dedicating our hearts and souls to try to heal the wound. You know, we didn't want to come to you and try to say we're coming here to compete with competing victimology. Who is the greater victim? Because so many of us in Israel, on both sides, we're trying to compete for world opinion. Oy vavoy, we're the greater victim. And each of us will only see ourselves as victims, and the other side is only perpetrators. Nobody's willing to see how sometimes they can also be a perpetrator, and the other one could also be a victim. And we want to get out of this victim consciousness and out of the reptilian brain, which is just fight or flight, and to try to have what some of my Rebbes taught me along the way. I learned from a few different teachers. One was Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. He said to make a difference in this world, you have to have a little of what he called azut de kedusha, holy chutzpah. Holy chutzpah, holy audacity. And right now you would say, Arabs and Jews getting along in the land of Israel, in the Holy Land? Are you crazy? So it really takes a bit of holy chutzpah to say, yes, we still think it's possible, even with everything that you see on the news now, and this is why we're here. I also learned from another one of my Rebbes, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I studied, by the way, in Crown Heights at one point, that we have to do little acts of Gimilut Hasidim to bring Mashiach closer. A little positive, each one of us in our own way, to bring Messiah a little closer. And Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, that we should see with the world, the eyes with the world of Messiah, to see with Messiah consciousness. When we see the problems of the world, not just see what's broken, but what tikkunim can we do? What fixing? How can we be part of the tikkun olam? And that's a little bit about the work and path of the Abrahamic reunion and what we're doing. And you have Daniel and Khalil and San and myself. We want to open the floor for a little bit of discussion and questions that you might have about the situation and this work. Thank you. Please.
Okay. Well, I know we all would like to thank you very much for your presentation. It's just been a heart-wrenching, but so illuminating to us, because we've never had quite this kind of a representation from Israel and the Middle East. So we thank you very much. My question would be, to what extent do you have a formal, any kind of formal arrangement or agreement with some of the more secular peace groups in Israel, like Shalom Achshav? We're members of Americans for Peace Now. And so I'm just curious about what kind of relationship there is, and is it a positive one, or perhaps too distracting from your general purpose?
Yeah, I'd like to. So the question was, do we work with the other peace groups, and do you work with the secular peace groups? Well, first of all, many of the events that we organize, I would add that this year's interfaith Ramadan dinner, also Ramadan was a fast day, and it fell on the 17th of Tammuz, which was a fast day also for Jews, beginning of the 3 days of mourning leading up to Tisha B'Av. So we also fast, and they also fast, Muslims and Jews, and Christians in support. So at a place called Tantur, right on the border of Bethlehem and Jerusalem. 70% of our audience, by the way, were secular, Israelis and Palestinians. Not everyone is religious. So we had a beautiful study gathering and a prayer with Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And then when it came time for the Muslims to break their fast and eat iftar, their fast ended at 6:56 p.m. The Jewish fast ends at 7:16 p.m. Muslims have been fasting all day. Obviously, they have a right religiously to eat, but out of respect for the Jews, they say, we're not going to eat yet. We're going to wait till 7:16. Me and Daniel and Sheikh Hassan, we each took a date, we held it in the air, and we said a prayer, each in our own tradition. We ate the date. We brought in kosher catering so that everyone could feel comfortable and eat, and we had so many people that we even had to turn away. We had 160, we had planned it for 100, 60 more came, and for hours, Jews, Christians, and Muslims didn't want to part. They just want to be people together, just humans together, just to be real together. And so we have a positive relationship with some of the other peace groups. To be honest, I sometimes feel like groups like Peace Now and some of the other groups demonize religious people and say, you religious people are the source of the problem, whether it's settlers or Hamas supporters. Several times we applied for grants, even from the Abraham Fund. I know the Abraham Fund very well. They support peace groups in Israel. And one year they said, each year they're funding projects. One year it's childhood education projects. Next one is sports projects. And one year they had for interfaith projects. Great, finally we can get a big grant from the Abraham Fund. We fill out the applications, it's turned down. We ask why? Because our donors in America, they were afraid of the hot potato in the room. It's called religion. So a lot of the peace groups, it's very easy to bring secular, liberal Tel Aviv activists, but to bring those people of religiosity, that's even more. It doesn't fit into any easy categories, you know. So I work in cooperation. I know Yariv Oppenheimer. I know we're part of the Israel-Palestine Peace NGO Forum, Jerusalem Peacemakers, into our sister organization. And I know all of them, but many times they look at you strange if you have a kippah. Oh, you're one of those settlers. You're one of those extremists, Jewish extremists, or you're one of those Muslim extremists. And so we have also our work cut out. I find it easier sometimes to work with people of faith, Muslims and Christians and Druze, because they understand a religious level of observance and that we're each keeping our tradition, our faith and our tradition, and we want to learn how to honor and respect. But we have a lot of secular who come to our activities, so it's not exclusively religious. You understand the population. Yes.
I also would like to thank you so much for coming. And particularly, I'm happy to hear about the children being educated. It's so important. We're here in the United States, when I read about the children being taught to hate as small children, I worry because for us to ever find peace, we need people to negotiate peace with. And if small children are taught to hate, who do we negotiate with the peace that we so much want? So I'm very pleased to see that you are helping the children learn a peaceful way to live. And I want to thank you for that. And I think that is the future that we want, is to educate the children. The adults, I don't know if we can educate, but if we bring a child up not to hate, but to love and to respect each other, then there's hope. So.
Yes. I should add, my wife also works in early childhood education, and she's working on projects bringing permaculture, ecology, organic food, all of these things into a whole, it's a religious Zionist network and school system, but she does in Israel education for this whole field, bringing these concepts into that school system and also interreligious tolerance. Everyone's asked, where's your Abba to my little girls? He's, off in Utah and Montana, speaking about interfaith work, so.
Thanks so much for coming. Shmi Eliyahu ben Moshe, Elliot Oppenheim. I live here in Montana, and I became an Israeli citizen this summer. I made my aliyah. And I have, this is I just made 4 trips to Israel, and this is my 4th trip. I drove 3,000 kilometers through Israel, from top to bottom, all over the place, which is actually hard to do in Israel. It's a small place.
Hey.
But I was in Israel for the war last summer. It is my impression that all you are seeing with all the crazy stuff on CNN are a bunch of crazy people doing really crazy things for really bad reasons. And the vast majority of people get along just fine. And I have been to Jordan. I go scuba diving in Jordan. I have a lot of Arab friends. I've been to Druze villages. I have been out as far as you can get in the middle of nowhere in Israel. I never felt threatened. I wound up in the village of Magdal Shams up towards the Lebanese border, actually on the border of Syria.
Syrian border.
It is a wonderful Druze village. I have Druze friends. And I have never seen any problem whatsoever of anybody getting along. Jews and Arabs, the Muslims and the Jews and the Druze and the Catholics and they're people, and we all like to eat, and so there's a lot of eating that goes on, a lot of singing and dancing and music. And I've been to art festivals, and I've been to every kind of thing you can go to in Israel. And it's very important here in America to realize that you are only seeing very few people misbehaving. I've been all over Jerusalem. It's totally safe, except where there are crazy people stabbing people. And it's the same as here in America, where we see on the news at night horrible, ghastly things going on in very, very small, isolated areas. And so it's a very few people who are making an enormously horrible contribution to society. And that which you speak of exists. There is cooperation, and people do get along. And I have never seen anything other than that. And I've been all over the place. I won't say that the Israeli army is nice. They do their job. Israel's safety and security is paramount in Israel, and I personally support it. I think that the way to gain peace is to do peace. Doing things like this, I think, is very important. I was at a gathering this summer where there were about 500 Israeli children and about 500 Arab kids doing a dance festival in Carmiel. And, it was fine. I didn't see anything. So I guess my comment is, here in Montana, where we are very isolated from the rest of the known world, it is important to realize really what you are looking at. It's very, very small. So it's, because otherwise you would go, oh, I'm so sad, it's really terrible. It is terrible. I'm not saying that what you're seeing is good. But
Right. It's a good point.
very
It's one fragment of the reality. It's not the whole picture. Yes. Any questions? Questions? Short, brief questions? Yes.
Come over this way, and then we'll come back to Jana.
הוא עשה עלייה, הוא נסע בכל הארץ, הוא ראה הרבה הרמוניה בארץ בין כל הדתות, ולא רואים את זה בחדשות. בקיצור.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa tasharafna. My name's Natalie, and I was just wondering, you talked about the trials that you have as you come out as peace leaders in the region, and I was just wondering how that brings you all together as a group.
האתגרים, איך זה מביא אותנו ביחד כמנהיגי שלום. You want to say something?
I'd like to comment on what he said a little bit. Yes, I like to comment on the things that you have shared. Me being a Palestinian Christian from Bethlehem, it is important to understand that in a country that there is conflict, that there are two viewpoints. I lived in the States about a total of 7 years. I came to notice that the American media, at least, used to be pro-Israel. So you hear the Israel side of what is happening in Palestine and Israel. And it is, to get the full picture, sometimes you need to go over there. Maybe you have been all the cities of Israel, but did not go to cities of Palestine like Bethlehem, Hebron, Nablus, Jenin. So maybe you have seen only one side, but what I just want to say is we are working together as Palestinians from Palestine and with Jewish people in Israel through Eliyahu. There are other viewpoints that we need to understand when we talk about politics over there. It is true that we are talking about peace, that we all think about peace, dream about peace, pray for peace, but also we have to pray for justice for the Palestinians. I believe that peace and justice are two sides for one coin. I believe that peace doesn't come alone without justice. I cannot kick you out from your home, make you homeless, and invite you to Pizza Hut and try to make a deal, let us have peace, on two conditions. The first one, you're not going to get your house back. The second one, you're not going to get a dime back. So I think we have to understand a little bit some of the history of what's happening. I mean, before I came in the past few months, Israel is taking an area very close to Bethlehem. It's called Kremizan area. It's about 500 dunams, and all these lands belong to Palestinians from Bethlehem area. And they are taking the land because the land is really good. It has a monastery. There's monks that are living there, and they make wine as well, because they want to include all that area to be part of Greater Israel. So taking land by force, I don't believe that is justful acts that Israel is doing. Knowing all these things, yet I do pray for peace, and I pray for justice. I pray for the actual landowner. It is their land. You cannot steal the land and say it is okay, we're doing this for the security of Israel. Well, you're taking a land that is not yours. I kicked you out from your home. It is rightfully yours. You paid for it. So I believe that in the book of Isaiah, it says that God was saddened because of the injustice that is happening in the land. So if God himself is sad because of the unjustful acts? I believe that we have a greater work to do, not only talk about peace, but also talk about, pray about justice as well. So, thank you.
I would say justice is also Jews coming home after 2,000 years and living in the land of Israel, and peace for Palestinians and justice. We're all one family, the Abrahamic family. Jews didn't come back after 2,000 years to be considered as occupiers, and we consider ourselves also coming home. I lead tours to Hebron every week, to the tomb of the patriarchs. That's how I make a living, not as a peacemaker, like I said, a tour guide, and I bring groups to the tomb of Abraham, a shared holy place for Jews, Christians, and Muslims, Marat Machpelah. And even there, the Jews have come back to live after a horrible massacre in 1929. The whole world comes to see Jews learning to living in the Holy Land as occupiers, as settlers, as colonialists, as Zionist occupiers. One of the challenges is how can we be seen as indigenous to the land, not as European colonialists setting up an outpost. So the beauty in Hebron is we were always in Hebron. We always lived in Hebron for thousands of years, since the time of Abraham. We weren't outsiders. The Palestinians, the Arabs never considered the Jews outsiders. They say these are Hebronites. Jews and Arabs are both indigenous. In fact, this is where our shared father Abraham, we're so attached to this holy place. And we share this building called Marat Machpelah. So how is it that we Israelis came to be viewed as colonialists, European outsiders, the French in Algeria or the Afrikaners in South Africa, just coming with a project? But one of the challenges that we came, after the '67 war, we came to live in Hebron, but sometimes we come with a little bit of arrogance, and sometimes we come with a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. And I believe that we have to come and to meet the elders and to meet the locals and to try to find a way in harmonious. It's not to say that we should dissolve a way of self-defense. That's not what I'm saying. But true safety and security for the state of Israel and the people of Israel is a hand reached out in peace and cooperation and friendship with our Arab neighbors. Maybe some don't want to accept us to be there, but those that do, let's work with them. Let's build friendships, let's build partnerships. This is safety and security for the Jewish people, is that the Bedouin in Israel should be integrated and that their communities should be uplifted, that my brothers in Bethlehem shouldn't feel that they have to have a wall around them. I ask a lot of people in Israel, why do you support the wall? By the way, ironically, the far right in Israel and the Palestinians are all against the wall for different reasons. It's really just the mainstream Israelis. So most of the right wing, they say, we don't want a wall, it's dividing the land of Israel, for different reasons. But you ask most Israelis, why? Why do you support this big, ugly, concrete wall? And I did the most interesting tour a few weeks ago with a guy named Danny, don't remember his last name, but he was the commander in the Israeli army, like a high up in the Israeli army, who was the person who planned, designed, implemented the entire West Bank separation wall. And he took us on a tour around, and he said this wall was built to prevent suicide bombings to come into Israel. And you ask most Israelis, why do you support building this fence? And there's one word: I'm afraid. I'm afraid for survival. Don't lecture to me about human rights when I'm trying to survive. It just comes to basic fear. And so I have friends who are asking me about some of the secular groups, the human rights activist groups, Rabbis for Human Rights, Israeli Committee Against Housing Demolitions, a lot of the human rights groups, they criticize our interfaith work, and they say, you're not protesting the wall, you're not taking down a checkpoint, you're not doing any of that. My response is, our work is also against occupation. But it's occupation, first of all, of the mind, the occupation of the heart, the occupation of fear that has taken over the hearts of both of our people. I'm here this week, and my wife is afraid. Do I send my daughters to preschool? There's no armed guards at the front gate of our preschool. Our preschool is walking distance from the central bus station. There was just a stabbing attack there yesterday. You know? So, do we live in openness? We don't want to live in fear. We don't want to have, fear. Do we send our children to school or not? Whether we're a peace activist or not, I have to also look out for my children. And I just wanted to say that you ask people, why do you support the wall? And it's really, the walls are here. The walls are here. And our work is to tear down those walls, these walls. We tear down these walls, overnight, all of the cement and the concrete, we could find a nice project, build a new pier in Jaffa for all of the incoming traffic, for all the ships of the world that will come to the Holy Land. So to tear down the walls of fear between our people, that is the challenge. And so we get flack, sometimes from the right, sometimes from the left, sometimes from this side, from that side. Also, I should add, if you're a Palestinian Muslim or Christian and a peacemaker, Daniel was there this summer for 9 years. Another organization that we work with, Jerusalem Peacemakers, holds an annual interfaith event around the walls of the Old City called the Big Hug of Jerusalem. For 9 years, we've had these powerful events to form a human chain simply to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We form a human chain and actually go to the walls of the Old City and hug it, to hug the Old City walls. And this year, for the first time, we managed to get permits for 250 Palestinians from Ramallah, from Bethlehem, from Tulkarem, school kids, buses, permits. This is my job, is to work closely with the Israeli army. And they get to Jerusalem and they're met by a group of thugs, Palestinian thugs, who said, you guys are normalizing the occupation. You're normalizers. So in other words, you're traitors for working together with Jewish Israelis. And some of our partners were met with punches and beaten, had to go to the hospital, simply because they were coming to pray for peace with Israelis. And the encouraging thing was not one of them backed down and said, no, we want to live together. We want to be with the Jews and Israelis. We're also against the occupation. But that the walls of fear should come down. And this is what will end things, not by just angry protests and bullets flying and fists flying. You have to also be the peace, not just to demonstrate in an angry way and hope to bring peace.
I'd like to say it must be really difficult if you don't speak English or understand English. Do you understand? I know. I wanted to say that I really was interested and appreciated what you did as a woman starting something in a community where it had never been done before. And women especially, or anybody that starts with a new idea and a new perspective to start something absolutely new is always I find it very difficult and is often criticized and goes through a very difficult time. I'm glad you were able to work with children for 15 years or however it was, and I really appreciate hearing your story and hearing about your life in Israel or in Israel. Anyway, I wanted to express my appreciation.
Thank you.
And thank you for sitting. So it's difficult when you don't understand the language to sit through constant talk. I know.
זה קשה לכם שהם לא מבינים את האנגלית?
לא, לא.
יש כמה מילים שהבנתי.
Yeah, they understand a lot more than they can speak, so it's okay. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
She appreciates the support. I just want to say we have a Facebook page, Abrahamic Reunion, a web page, Abrahamic Reunion. So you can friend us on Facebook, we're an entity, or like us at Jerusalem Peacemakers, also on Facebook. So you can either like us or friend us, and we'll friend you back on Facebook, abrahamicreunion.org. If you want to write a check to support us or put more money in the hat, we appreciate. תגיד.
אמרתי לכם, שני דברים, או תתמכו בנו או תיקחו אותנו. אין אפשרות שלישית.
Said you have two choices. Either take us all in or give us a lot of support. There's no third option here. You're not leaving this room. It's one or the other.
כי אם נבוא לכאן, אנחנו נשגע אתכם כאן פשוט.
He said, if we come here, believe me, we're going to drive you crazy.
עדיף שתתמכו בנו ונשאר שם.
Preferably, just write a big check, and we'll stay there. We'll stay there. Maybe.
Oh, no. If you, please, complete your sentence.
Yes. I was going to say, we wanted to maybe just get everyone to stand up. We've been sitting for a while. Maybe hold hands, and we're going to join hands together. And maybe Reverend Daniel say a short prayer.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for you are the God of peace. And we ask you to reign and send your Holy Spirit to the Holy Land, to Palestine and Israel, and remove all thoughts of revenge and violence. We believe that you are the God of comfort, the God of the just, the God of peace, the God that can comfort every heart. As we gather together today, we ask you for a blessing for everyone that came to attend here and to hear about your work in the Holy Land. We pray that peace and justice one day will come and reign in Palestine and Israel. We believe that you are the only one that can hear our prayers. And we believe that through you, all things are possible. We pray this in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
نطلب من الله عز وجل أن يعم السلام على أبناء العم في فلسطين وإسرائيل. ובארק אללה פיכום. אני מבקש מאלוהים בתפילה שהשלום ישרור בין בני הדודים, גם הישראלים וגם הפלסטינים, ונקבל לשלום טוב.
He said, I pray that to Allah Almighty, that peace come to the Holy Land between the cousins, between the Israelis and Palestinians, the Holy Land. יהי רצון מלפניך, Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elahei Avotenu ve'Elahei Emotenu. May it be your will, the Lord of our forefathers, the Lord of our foremothers. Sheyeh shalom, kodem kol, b'toch halevavot shelanu. That peace should come first of all in our own hearts. And may there be peace in Missoula, Montana. And may the peace from Missoula spread all over the world, and particularly to the Holy Land and the Middle East. Also, our brothers and sisters in Syria need our help. We also think a lot about the Syrians in Israel, although the problems that we have are nothing compared to what they're going through, even with the challenges. May it be your will. Ribono shel olam, ribono shel olam. May it be your will. Send healing to the family of Abraham, the wounded family, children of Abraham, the daughters and sons of Hagar and Sarah. May we remember that we are all one family. May we remember what we have forgotten, that we are more than just cousins, but brothers. May we awaken to the unity, to awareness of the one God. May the prophets who walked in that land, let us remember the message of love and cooperation and not hate and fear that we claim the prophets taught us. May the prophets from the land of the prophets show us the way again to walk hand in hand, arm in arm, in harmony. Amen. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you so, so much for being here. I wish you, and I speak for everyone, I think, that we wish you a safe and beautiful trip back to Salt Lake, where I will see you probably, because there's a handful of us from Missoula that are from different faith traditions that are going down, and are planning to see each other there, Motzi Shabbos, at the end of Shabbat. So, yeah, we would definitely will.